rolling.
Okay. All right, we'll just say hi to Leo and Nick.
Greetings, Leo and Nick.
Just going to share our discussion with you today, so on Tocqueville's Democracy in America. So, I got kind of an agenda here. Want to just go through the agenda and go from there? Or, okay. All right. The first thing we'll talk about is basically the structure of the book and the different chapters and the title of the book, and kind of just discuss those to begin with. And in there, I want to go over his introduction to the book as well.
Okay.
Let's look at, we're starting with book 2, which, if you open up to the table of contents, there was the 4 different parts there, and the first one was the influence of democracy on intellectual movement in the United States, and the second one was influence of democracy on the sentiments, and the third on mores, properly so called, whatever that means, and then the fourth is on the influence that democratic ideas and sentiments exert on political society. And so the first one here was influence of democracy. So let's look at each of those 4 things there, which are the intellect, the sentiments, the mores, and then those are. Notice the title of each of these all are the same thing. Influence of democracy on the first part, influence of democracy on for the second part. For the third part, influence of democracy on. And then the fourth part says, on the influence that democratic ideas and sentiments exert on political society. So, and that sort of takes the first 2 parts there and says, okay, democracy is shaping the intellect, it is shaping the sentiments, it is shaping the mores. Now, what is the political effect of that sort of shaping that's taking place? Right? So if you guys want to say anything about that or anything, you could jump in. But I'll just keep talking unless you say something. So what I thought we could do is a couple of things to talk about. I'll talk about kind of what the agenda I have here, and if you guys want to change it at all, or what you think. So first I thought let's talk about the kind of just briefly look at the chapters of the first section, which is the section on the intellect. And we can go over and say, I thought we could start with maybe doing, basically asking what type of book is he writing here? What is this book supposed to be about? And what's, just very generally, who's the book supposed to be for? Is it a book on? Is it a history book? Is it what type of book it is? And then we can go through into maybe the webbing exercise exercise that we do, where we kind of ask questions. We say, this is the book here, this is the subject. Let's just start webbing out and asking questions about what's happening there. And then I thought we could show sort of outline the chapters and what is this particular section, what is he trying to cover in this entire unit here that we just read. And then start to maybe get into the meat of the book a little bit, maybe go over the introduction. Sounds good? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, well, let's start with what sort of a book this is. And I'm going to be going off of Adler's sort of categories of books here, which is broken. The main category he breaks it out into is an expository work, which tries to convey something, some sort of knowledge. this is an expository work versus a book of fiction. But then from there, the distinction that he makes in an expository work, is it a work that is sort of a practical work that's trying to show you how to do something, or is it a work that is more theoretical and just sort of trying to show, give you some information and some knowledge without trying to change anything about that knowledge or anything, or tell you how to do something. So, and you guys can comment. Which way do you think that one?
From what I read thus far, not reading the first book, or the first volume, it is, it's a more explanatory. It's an explanation of theory of what he perceived in America during his time.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not necessarily telling you how to be a democratic society. He's just putting forth his observations and theories of the democratic population versus a lot of times in comparison to an aristocratic society.
Right. And almost exclusively.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the only comparison that he seems to be making is democracy versus aristocratic society. So.
I think there is some intent, though, that he said in the introduction that it. What were the two categories?
The practical versus the theoretical.
The theoretical what?
The theoretical is more putting out a theory out there without just sort of tell you about this theory without sort of trying to change anything or.
Yeah, I think he does. It seems like he does want to bring about some change or something close to that, because from what I got from the introduction, he's saying France had gone through the revolution. France was now a democracy, but he saw that there were possible pitfalls in what was happening in France, so he went to America to see democracy kind of in its raw form, not as like a democracy transposed on an aristocracy. He's saying this is a pure form of democracy. So what lessons can we learn from here to apply to what we're dealing with now, so that we just don't, so that we avoid mistakes, so that we can learn from them and I guess naturally go into a democracy as opposed to just kind of rushing into it. And I don't know.
No, that's he makes at one point he makes the point that, look, America basically there was no how do you put it, that America that was sort of just growing, this democracy was just sort of growing without any sort of guidance to it, and didn't he say that whereas with the French Revolution you had a complete revolution from an aristocracy to a democracy. Well, it took a while, but then in America, didn't he say like it wasn't really through, and you'd say, well, you had the American Revolution.
Right.
So what is he saying the difference is there between the French Revolution and the American Revolution?
Well, for the most part, I think, when the colonies were started and formed, it almost seemed to grow. They wanted to get away from it. It seemed from, all the hierarchical castes and whatnot, and just be a society. They didn't, when the American Revolution wasn't necessarily it was to throw off and to gain their own independence, but it wasn't fighting the stratus of those divisions. It was kind of, everyone came here and seemed to be a free country, seemed to be democratic from its beginning.
Right. It started out a lot more equal than sort of a revolution, occurring, and then trying to sort of break down these barriers.
Right. It's not like they were going over to England and trying to make that
Right.
Right.
over here, just trying to separate from.
Okay. Okay, so we don't really have an answer here. We Justin was saying, well, it's more theoretical.